Fight as a hero, or die as a coward.
Hey everyone, Caisha from TG and League of Legends here, bringing you a brief guide on the basics of Riot's new champion, Aatrox, the Darkin Blade. At first glance, he's a very cartoonish champion, anime from some people's description. Feels a lot like Varus in his form and art. His model is quite large, which works well since he is very clearly the type of champion who is bred for team fights. So let's go ahead and review some of his basic abilities. His passive, Bloodwell, is essentially built as a teamfight GA/Zillion ult. The more health he uses during the fight to activate his abilities, the more health is stored into his Bloodwell. Once he dies, he regens the health back and is once again active, but with a 3+ minute cooldown, of course. Keep in mind this is most effectively charged during combat, since he does lose 3% of Bloodwell per second while out of combat. His Q, Dark Flight, is a somewhat long-range Nidalee pounce, with a knock-up to boot. The center will knock up the enemies for 1 second, good for interrupting channels like Nunu's ult, etc., but the outer circle will still just do damage. The range is, I found, deceptively short, but very powerful once you get used to it. His W is a toggled ability with a very short cooldown. You can spam switch it during team fights, but don't get too aggressive with that. When toggled to the deep red blade, which is called Bloodthirst, every third strike will grant you health back. Good for sustain and lane, and when you want a bit more burst, you just toggle to Blood Price, which is the purple blade, which deals bonus damage at the cost of health. Each one of those abilities on his W has an inherent passive. If the Thirst or Lifesteal one is active, then both of your other abilities, Q and E, will cost less health to activate. It's like 50%. This is very good for initiating with before you swap to Bloodthirst, or if you're low on health. Bloodthirst is passive, increases the damage done by both Q and E by 25%. So again, if you want to go burst, you're going to want to have Bloodthirst active, pretty much. It's the one that deals extra damage at a cost of health and increases your damage on both Q and E. His E is basically a really fancy slow. I mean, these graphics are amazing, but that's pretty much what it is. I mean, it does some magic damage, and it does have an AP ratio, but it's fairly low. But maybe somewhere in time, you'll see someone utilize a hybrid-esque build, a la Nashor's Tooth, maybe, since his ult does also have some AP ratio, but again, kind of low. So who knows? I mean, that's part of what League of Legends is all about, is all the creativity. So maybe we'll see something like that. His ult is like a team fight steroid. It doesn't cost anything to activate, unlike Q and E, which cost a percent of your current health. It deals instantaneous percent current health damage to surrounding enemies. It's like 12% or something like that. It acts as an attack speed steroid and health increase for 12 seconds. The cool thing about this is that the attack speed and health you get increases for each enemy champion who is hit by your ult. So if, say, you start with a 25%, that's just automatic. It's based on your first level of ult, right? And then it goes up to 45%. For each surrounding champion, so say, I don't know, if you're in the middle of a team fight, you're just like, hey, I'm just going to Q in on the Mumu ult, and I'm going to R. That would give you an instantaneous 50% extra attack speed. So it's quite impressive. And so it's 10% for each enemy champion. And you also get, of course, health increase per enemy champion. It's like 50 to 80 per, 80 health per champion, aside from the base. And that lasts for about 12 seconds. So he gets bigger. He does get bigger, and he gets more health and more attack speed. The end. That's all you gotta know. The basic gist of Aatrox is this. He's going to be insane for team fights, or even small little mini skirmishes, but in the end is essentially a melee duelist with a small gap close. Most of his abilities are centered around attack speed, every third hit, ult is a steroid, etc. Thus the recommended route is the standard attack speed, attack damage. The health cost per ability is not something that should cause you to really build health like on some champions. And he's also not really like a Nasus, where you just build him tanky because his Q is going to do all the damage late game. Like, it's not something like that. It doesn't work. It doesn't work like that. It's much more symbiotic in nature with attack speed and attack damage. And the health is just kind of a sidebar on that. For catching people out, E is a great slow. It lasts quite some time. It's like 3 seconds or 2.5 seconds at max. But it's fairly slow cast and like movement. Like you'll see it in the graphics. It's just kind of slow. And there's a cue to pounce, but it's important to hit the enemy square in the circle so that you get the knockup most of the time, so that you get the knockup. Most of the time for fights, you'll want to have blood price up for the extra damage, but keep in mind you can most certainly toggle the ability if you want to take advantage of their respective passives. Just want the Q knockup, activate Bloodthirst and Q. Less cost to your health. Need more damage, the finishing move, keep it in blood price, and Q for more damage. As with most attack speed dependent melee ranged AD types, you'll want to keep a good balance of attack speed and AD, since his ult gives an attack speed steroid, and most of the time in team fights you'll probably be using your ult, then you can probably not have an attack speed heavy build per se, unless you don't want it to be completely dependent on your ult, and you can just go AD. It's up to you. They recommended the Blade of the Rune King because it has lifesteal, attack speed, and attack damage, and it's a great item. And even though they even recommended Zephyr, which I'm pretty sure is like the first time they've recommended Zephyr on an offensive item for, I think, any champion that I've seen. But that doesn't mean that it doesn't exist. I'm just thinking, yeah. I'm pretty sure that's one of the first ones I've seen for him. So the Zephyr gives movement speed, attack damage, and it gives tenacity, so you don't have to get the tenacity boots. You can go Ninja Tabby or Berserker's Greaves or whatever you want to go. So that gives you a little leeway too as far as boots go. You can go a little bit cheaper too. Personally, I'm not really a fan of him in lane phase, but but that's just because I'm not a big melee champion person in general. But if you are in love with the team fighting aspect of League, as I am, then you will really want to master this guy. People always love to target the big thing that just leaped into them. Think Zac. Just Q, ult, let your team pew pew while you do some of your own. Oh, you died? Bloodwell. GG no re. And that's all I have for today for Aatrox. Once again, this is Caisha with TG and League of Legends. If you want more League content, be sure to subscribe. Thanks.